Hello and welcome back. This is Candace from Candoodle, and today we are going to be making a super fun shaker card with seed beads and digi stamps. I don't often use red in my cards, but I did today, so let's get started. I'm going to be using the Studio Katia Darling Ribbon and Dotted Frame die, the Honeybee Hugs die, as well as some seed beads from Crescent Creations in red torch and silver. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my digi stamps ready. So I'm taking the flowers from Best Mom and I'm just dragging them into Word. I'm going to resize them so they're a bit smaller and will fit nicely on an A2 card size. And I'm just kind of twisting them around to see how they're going to look because this is how they're going to be in my final design. But I'm going to fussy cut them once I print them, so it's not going to matter too much. Once I'm happy with the size, I'm going to print them out and fussy cut them. So off camera, I have cut that dotted frame, and that's going to be the frame for our shaker card. I'm taking my fun foam, and it's cut down to A2 size already, and I'm just going to make sure that that's lined up right in the middle of the die. I'm not going to run this through my die cut machine because I find fun foam tends to lose its shape, but I'm just going to trace around with a pencil where the opening is, and then cut just around that. That way it's going to fit nicely behind my frame, and it's going to keep its shape, and it's not too big of a deal because you're not actually going to see it. So I just wanted to make sure that it was the right size. I'm going to fussy cut that out, and then once it is done, I am going to get some acetate and adhere that to the back of the paper piece of my frame. When I'm sticking acetate down, I like to use a strong double-sided adhesive, so this one is Sukawang, and I'm just putting that around the frame, and to make sure I get those little notches that are in more that I couldn't quite fit tape around, I am going to come in with some glossy accents and just make sure that I get nicely around that edge, and I'm not using too much because I don't want it to ooze out and leave clouds on the acetate. And so when that's done, I'm going to stick my acetate down and then make sure it's nice and pressed to make sure that it's not coming up in any areas or anything like that. So now on the back, I am going to adhere my fun foam, so I'm using glossy accents on that. I just find that that tends to be the best glue when I'm working with fun foam personally. And I do run my finger over it just so there's not any big globs that are going to squeeze out and affect my shaker bits. And so I leave that to dry for a while, and while I do that, we're going to work on the background that's going to go behind the frame. So I'm coming in with some distress ink just to make a light blended background. And so these are in Candied Apple and Abandoned Coral. You can't see a huge difference in the video, but in person it does look more ombre. And I'm just coming in with a really light hand to add some variation to the background. Once that's done, I'm going to start adding all of my beads and shaker bits. So these are the red torch and silver seed beads. I put those in and tested it out, and I wanted some more, so I got some sequins just for my stash, and they're kind of iridescent, so I put those in as well. And then I saw how that was with the frame and decided I want more. Shaker cards are always a process for me. I've never just throw them in and I'm happy. I always kind of test it out, take things in and out until I'm happy with how full it is. And so once I liked the way that it looked, I did put some more glossy accents on the back of the fun foam, and again rubbed it with my finger to make sure none of it would ooze out. And then I'm going to put it on the background panel. And I'm not going to move that because I don't want, while the glue is wet, the seed beads or anything to get stuck. And so now we're going to move on to the coloring while that dries. So I don't often use red on my cards. I almost never do, but I'm trying to, branch out. And I thought that these flowers would look really pretty in red. So I'm using a few different colors, R37, 35, and 43. So 43 is my lightest, which I just covered everything with. And then I'm coming in the nooks with R37, which is my darkest. And then I just kind of blend that out with R35 and then back to R43. So I tend to go lightest and then darkest back out to my lightest. And I'm not doing anything super fancy. I'm kind of just flicking and feathering. I'm not an expert with Copic colors, but I do like to experiment. And I actually quite like how these reds turned out. And I think I might use them more because they're more of like a pinkish red than a true red, which I find harder to work with personally. And so I'm only showing the first flowers in the video because I colored the other flower exactly the same, using the same colors. I had an extra cap out there. I thought I was going to use one shade darker red, but I actually ended up liking just the 3 shades. But of course you could color these with any sort of coloring medium of your choice, and that's the beauty of digi stamps. You can even print them out on watercolor paper or anything like that, so they're so versatile. I'm coming in the center with some Y18, Y15, and Y06, and I'm also adding some little stippling and dots to the center to give it some more variation and depth. And so once those are done, we are going to move on to assembling the full card. And so here I have my flowers, I have my shaker element, and then I have a card base. So I'm going to come in with some liquid adhesive so I can get that nice and centered on my card. I find liquid adhesive can be a bit more forgiving because it gives you some wiggle room to get it perfectly centered before it dries. And then I'm just going to position my flowers where I think I want them. But before I glue them down, I am going to glue together my hugs die. So I just cut it from 110-pound cardstock and then from some Tim Holtz gold cardstock and stack those together to give it a little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to see how that looks with my flowers if I need to move anything before I glue them down. And because I am gluing this partially to the acetate, I am again going to use my glossy accents to make sure that stays down nice and it's not going to go anywhere. And with my hugs die, I did put the glossy accents on the back, and I always tap it off on another sheet of just scrap paper to ensure that I don't have any globs that are going to ooze out and leave cloudy residue on the acetate. And so there we have the final card. I absolutely love shaker cards. I think they're super fun, and I love including seed beads on the inside because it gives it a lot of movement. I hope you enjoyed today's card, and you'll have to let me know how you feel about the red down in the comments. Thank you so much for stopping by here today. I really appreciate the time that you spend here with me. As always, you can find me over on Instagram at Canddoodle Creations, and until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye!